Mr. President,
Senator from Arkansas.
it's an honor to serve in the Senate. It's an honor to serve the people of Arkansas. I would never complain about the tasks that we're given. There is one small burden I bear, though. As a junior senator, I preside over the Senate. I usually do it in the morning, which means I am forced to listen to the bitter, vulgar, incoherent ramblings of the minority leader. Normally, like every other American, I ignore them. I can't ignore them today, however. The minority leader came to the floor, grinding the Senate to a halt all week long, saying that we haven't had time to read this defense bill, that it was written in the dead of night. We just had a vote that passed 98-0. It could have passed unanimously 2 days ago. Let's examine these claims that we haven't had time to read it. 98-0, and in committee, all the Democrats on the Armed Services Committee voted in favor of it. When was the last time the minority leader read a bill? It was probably an electricity bill. What about the claims that it was written in the dark of night? It's been public for weeks. And this coming from a man who drafted Obamacare in his office and rammed it through this Senate at midnight on Christmas Eve on a straight party line vote? To say that the senator from Arizona wrote this in the dead of night, slipped in all kinds of provisions, that people didn't have time to read it, that is an outrageous slander. And to say that he cares for the troops, how about this troop and his son and his father and his grandfather, 4 generations of service, to include almost 6 years of rotting in a prisoner of war camp? Say that he's delaying this because he cares for the troops? A man who never served himself? A man who in April 2007 came to this very floor before the surge had even reached its peak and said the war is lost, when over 100 Americans were being killed in Iraq every month, when I was carrying their dead bodies off an airplane at Dover Air Force Base. It was an outrage to say that we had to delay this because he cares for the troops. We're delaying it for one reason and one reason only: to protect his own sad, sorry legacy. He now complains in the mornings that the Senate is not in session enough, that our calendar is too short. Well, whatever you think about that, the happy byproduct of fewer days in session in the Senate is that this institution will be cursed less with his cancerous leadership. I yield the floor.
We're going to proceed very deliberately. In spite of all the castigations about me made on the Senate floor, I'm going to ignore those. Because to be quite honest with you, any time that we need to talk about any statements I've made at any time, I'm happy to do it. But I think it would distract from what we're doing here today to go into the statements made by the very junior senator from Arkansas. But I do have to just say this. I think I'm not the reason that we're having such short work days in the Senate, even though that was alleged by my friend from Arkansas. We're going to do our job. We're going to do it the best way we can, because it's important. Now, Mr. President, I've said it here on the floor, and I'm going into a lot more detail than what I'm saying right here. But down in the room where we meet on a closed confidential basis, last Thursday I met with the Secretary of Defense. I have the good fortune every 3 weeks to be briefed on what's going on around the world by the military, by others who help us be safe and secure in this country. And we talked about a number of things that we need not discuss here openly, but one thing we can talk about openly here is the Secretary of Defense thinks it's really, really, really underscore every really I said to put in this bill what my friend from Arizona said he's going to do, and that is move $18 billion from war fighting, the Overseas Contingency Fund, into regular, everyday appropriation matters, authorization matters, that take away from the ability of the Pentagon to plan what they're going to be doing next year or the year after. This is something I need to take a hard look at, because I've said here on the floor earlier today, I appreciate very much the Republican leader responding to a letter that we wrote to him, saying that on these budgetary matters, he would stick with the 2-year deal that we made. I'm glad. That's great. But my friend from Arizona wants to violate that deal. And I think that's wrong. And we're going to take a hard look at that, because we believe that not only a secure nation not only depends on the Pentagon, bombs and bullets, but also depends on all the other agencies of government who help us maintain our security. The FBI, Drug Enforcement Administration, all the different responsibilities of the Department of Homeland Security. So let's understand that no one's trying to stall this legislation. If nothing happens on this bill during the next 24 hours, I think it'll be a much better process to finish the bill when we come back. We'll do it with our eyes wide open. No one will be able to say, I didn't know that was in there. What I said, and I'll say it with my friend on the floor, there are a lot of little goodies in this bill. I think we need to take a look at those. And my friend, of all people, who has worked hard during the entire time that he's been in the Senate. He and I didn't get much done in the House. That's when you're there for two terms, you don't get much done. But in the Senate, he's gotten a lot done, focusing on what he believes is wasteful spending on government. Now, I've disagreed with him on some of the examples he's pointed out. Some of them have been dealing with Nevada, but he's done that well. We have a responsibility, and we've been trained pretty well by the senior senator from Arizona. Look at these bills, what's in them. And I frankly believe, with my limited knowledge of this bill, but I've been told by my staff, they've identified things in this bill that we better take a close look at. So, Mr. President, I'm not here in any way to not give my full support to the efforts made by Jack Reid, who's the ranking Democrat on this committee. This bill is not John McCain's bill. It's not Jack Reid's bill. It's our bill. And I want to make sure that this bill that's our bill comes out in a way that's good for the American people. My view of what's good for the American people may be different than others, but I think we have a responsibility to do everything we can to proceed in a very orderly fashion. And as soon as we get on this bill, I'll do my very best to move it along just as quickly as possible. So I object.